All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the second installment of our Duke Lemur Center, Duke University sponsored Hangout on Air with Dr. Erik Patel, who I hope you all just got to see doing his amazing research and conservation work on the ground in Madagascar in an incredible place. The documentary was amazing. The sweeping landscapes, hiking through the forests, even the feeling some of the tension in my own chest of darting the silkies and catching them in the nets, and then getting to learn about some of the incredible work that was done by the investigation agency with Bismarck out of Washington, and tracking illegal logging and seeing the fingerboards, and really getting a good understanding of sort of what's going on in Madagascar and the real issues that seem to be facing the silky sifaka, but even the other wildlife. The amazing shots of some of the ring-tailed mongoose, the incredible, beautiful birds, all of which are threatened by the illegal logging, illegal activity in general, and the destabilization of the government in Madagascar and what that's all led to. Any thoughts right off the bat, Erik, Charlie?
Erik, go ahead.
Well, it's amazing to see it all come together. You know, after four film trips, and including helicopter filming, and all the anxiety that goes with filming in one of the most difficult filming environments around, a rainforest. You know, when it's pouring rain, they can't film. When it gets foggy and misty, they can't film, and it's amazing that we got away with it, especially the political angle.
Right, right. So, I guess maybe we'll start there, because the second installment, the second sort of half of the film, focused heavily on the rosewood logging, Gibson guitars, and the trade in illegal woods. But how are things in Madagascar right now? Because this documentary is a few months old now, and things move fast in our world.
Well, yeah, we're still in the political crisis there, you know, and we're expecting the elections to take place in May or June of next year. That's the plan, and hopefully that will all go smoothly. But if history repeats itself, as it often does, we could well have another crisis coming up in May or June of next year. So we're cautiously optimistic, but a little bit cynical too.
Mm-hmm. What about illegal logging in northeast Madagascar?
Certainly it's still occurring, unfortunately, in Mashwala National Park for sure, and Mananarana Nor National Park also, perhaps some other areas, but we've been very lucky that the area where we work most, Marojejy National Park, has been calm now for about 2 years.
Oh, good.
One of the advantages of Marojejy in that area is there's one road access to that area, so any wood that has to come out from the area of the national park or the protected area has to come out on that road, whereas in the Mashwala area, which they were talking about as well, is it's much easier to get the wood out because you've got miles and miles, kilometers and kilometers of beaches where boats can come pick the wood up, where the wood can be hidden in sand, buried in sand, and well, Erik, as you know, that's still going on.
Yeah, yeah.
We had a question.
Yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
No. Let's take the first question.
Oh, okay. We can jump to it. So Jennifer would like to know, what other lemur species do you encounter in Marojejy?
Oh, great question. In total, there are 11 species of lemurs in Marojejy. So aside from the silky sifaka, we also have, well, silky sifakas are the only truly diurnal lemur in Marojejy, the only lemur that's exclusively active in the daytime, which is interesting. But there are a number of nocturnal lemurs and cathemeral lemurs. Some of the nocturnal lemurs are the also mouse lemurs. There's also fork-marked lemurs. There are lepilemurs, and there are also avahi. Those would be the nocturnal lemurs. Then there are a number of cathemeral lemurs, lemurs which are active in the day and the night. Fortunately, silky sifakas are not active in the night. But some of these cathemeral lemurs, day active and night active, are the bamboo lemurs. We have the lesser bamboo lemur in Marojeji. There's also the white-fronted brown present there, and also Eulemur rubrevener, the red-bellied lemur. So in total, I believe I've got them all. Oh well, sorry, I forgot Allocebus, which is the most elusive of the nocturnal lemurs. Has only ever been seen once or twice. But the hairy-eared dwarf lemur looks like a mouse lemur, but certainly is not. Also found in Marojeji. So quite a phenomenal primate diversity in Marojeji. 11 species of primates, 11 species of lemurs. That's remarkable.
And what is biodiversity like in Marojeji?
Well, biodiversity is vast in Marojeji, as Charlie was explaining. Really, we have over 2,000 species of angiosperms. That's remarkable. That diversity of plant. I mean, they're only a fraction of that diversity in all of North America. But we having and more than 95% of those angiosperms are only found in Madagascar. So those are endemic, often locally endemic species. Tremendous reptile diversity too. Hundreds of species of reptiles, and again, endemism is well over 95% for the reptiles in Marojeji and in Madagascar. So just a vast biodiversity. One reason is because we have a lot of elevational variation. Marojeji is a mountainous national park. We have a mountainous summit at about 2,100 meters, and there are a lot of species which are specific to certain elevations. So the elevations may also contribute to the biodiversity in Marojeji to some extent.
And silky, just to clarify, silkies live in Marojeji National Park. Are they found elsewhere or just that one location?
Well, most of the population of silky sifakas is in Marojeji National Park. I'd say about 70% of the population. However, they're also found in Anjanahari Bay Sud Special Reserve, and there could be dozens of groups in Anjanahari Bay Sud. It's about half the size of Marojeji. It's a large protected area, but there hasn't been serious population surveys there for more than 15 years. So that's one of our priorities in the coming years, is to learn more about how many silkies are left in Anjanahari Bay Sud Special Reserve. But aside from that, there's also the corridor between Marojeji and Anjanahari Bay Sud, which has at least a few groups of silkies. The World Wildlife Fund manages that corridor, and they're active there, actively protecting the silkies there. And finally, the large Makira, the Makira Natural Park, is a vast protected area to the south of Marojeji, and we know of a number of different groups. Although they're very spread apart, it's a very patchy distribution in Makira. But the film featured a group from Makira. That's where we darted that group. That was in the Makira Natural Park. So Makira has at least 10-12 groups of silkies. And it's the Wildlife Conservation Society which is protecting Makira.
Okay. How are the groups of silkies that you darted and studied and collected those samples from? How are they doing?
Those groups are doing well. You know, those are our two heavily monitored groups. So we have a long-term presence in those two field sites, and they're doing well, and I think that's a model for the future. Is groups that are regularly monitored by even semi-regularly monitored by research teams are the groups that are going to make it for the long term. So, yeah, what we need to do in the future is try and spread our influence. If we could find a few more groups, for example, it'd be nice to have a group or two in Anjanahari Sud that was regularly monitored by research teams. Yeah.
Can you see any effects from, or have you noticed any effects on the ground from the enforcement of the Lacey Act in the United States against Gibson?
Well, it's true that Marajeji has been calm now for more than 2 years. And there's been a lot, aside from, there have been a number of contributing factors. Certainly the work of Environmental Investigation Agency, certainly the settling of the Gibson case. People are aware of that, and people are scared that the Americans are coming, and that people are people are paying attention, because in the early years of the rosewood trade, no one paid attention, and certainly when it was discovered, we were all encouraged to keep quiet about it. But the best way to handle it was not to say anything. And there are still people that adopt that philosophy. But that's not a philosophy that we've adopted in Marajeji. We've made several films about it. Aside from this film, we've made a few other films, and we've also written several articles about it. And I think the sum total of that, along with the impact of the Lacey Act, has kept Marajeji calm in the past few years, and certainly it helps to have it's generated a lot of media. The New York Times did a story on this issue. National Geographic did. So
Okay.
That's okay, Erik. So yeah, there's been a lot of press recently, just within the past year or two, surrounding the Silky Shafak, illegal logging, with the documentaries. This one, others, I think the other was called Trouble in Lemurland.
And Dan Rather reports. In fact, in 2009, Dan Rather reports. It's on HDNet. It's a 60 minutes type program. They did a very in-depth report that was influential, certainly in 2009 and 2010. Yeah.
Wow. We've got another question, I see.
Yeah.
And we're gonna talk silkies some more. Do the silkies make nightly nests? And what do they do when they go to sleep?
Yeah, well, they don't build nests. They sleep high in tree canopies, and we've actually got some nice sleeping tree data, and I can report that we know for sure now that they sleep at higher in the forest and at higher heights than they travel at, or that they rest at. So clearly they're moving up higher. We also have found some preferred sleeping trees, but it's not. It's still rather complex. Although you can say that they have some preferred sleep, they have a lot of preferred sleeping trees. They have dozens of preferred sleeping trees. But their sleeping trees that are highly preferred tend to be food trees and tend to be very tall trees. So, yeah, they we don't think they move much at night, but it's not. Sometimes we suspect that they might move around a little bit at night, but it's not been well studied, nighttime activity. But yeah. Anyway, that's how we find them. We follow them to their sleeping trees, because our main group in Marajeji doesn't have radio collars anymore. So we follow them to their sleeping trees each night, and then we show up right before they wake up, and that's how we follow them every day. Yeah.
Wow. You mentioned earlier, I think maybe it was in our first hangout, and you definitely could see it in the documentary, that the majority of the people on your research team helping you track the lemurs, holding the nets as they fell from the trees after being darted, were Malagasy. and we actually had a question come in, sort of to that effect, that I think both of you should jump in on. Is that are the Malagasy people cooperative and accepting of conservation efforts?
Well, let's let Charlie take that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a tough one, really. It's a good question, and you know, you can't expect people that are very poor, that are kind of living on the to heart, just for the sake of conservation, and that's really why we work in so many different activities that can benefit people in different ways, from the fish farming that Erik talked about earlier, to building schools, to reforestation in a way that benefits people, by growing trees that they can use, not just growing trees to replace natural forest. We want to do that as well, but we also need to grow trees that people can use the wood either for building houses or for firewood. So you have to use all these different techniques or approaches to conservation that really give people advantages. Otherwise, it just won't work.
Absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Excellent. We had another question come in, and it's one for you, Erik. I wonder how long you've been researching lemurs. When did you first find out that lemurs were going to be your life?
Yeah. Well, I first started researching lemurs in the year 2000, and I've gone back to Madagascar every year since then. I wouldn't say I planned for that to happen, but it's amazing how one thing led to another, and that proved to be the course that my life would take. I think the first time I really got to get close to the Silkies, and it finally stopped raining, that I realized that how much I liked them, and how fun they were to watch. So it wasn't the first year. The first year was very, very hard, 2001, and we actually didn't know if we would come back because we didn't get much data, and we didn't really know how to make life livable in camp, and we didn't have enough people in the village helping us. But the second year, we were able to get a lot closer to the animals. They tolerated our presence a lot more. We were really able to get to know the animals as individuals, get a lot more data, and it was then, and we had babies for the first time in 2002, that we started to think, you know, we could stay here a while, because these animals are gorgeous, and we're able to get a lot of work done here now. And there's a real opening because there was no one there. You know, it was a national park that didn't have any long-term researchers with a permanent presence there. Yeah. Let's see. Was there a third question there?
Yeah, and one actually. I saved it from Janet as part of the second part of this one, because I thought actually Charlie may be good for this one, because Charlie, I know you've done some distance learning with students in grade school, at grade school levels. You've also done learning programs with students in local schools here in Durham, which is where the Lemur Center is located, and schools that are even 200 yards down the road from us that come out and participate in service learning projects that we do at the Lemur Center. Listeners, for aspiring young researchers or young students in school, how can they get involved in research or helping to try and make a difference for lemurs?
Well, I mean, it's hard to get involved with projects overseas. It's not impossible. You know, working with this organization or the Conservation Consortium, the Madagascar Fauna Group, we've seen there have been a surprising amount of support from school groups, just from individuals, small groups that even do things like set up lemonade stands on the side of the road and make a little money and end up donating $100 or a couple of $100 to the Madagascar Fauna Group's conservation work in Madagascar. That's one thing you can do, but I always encourage students to get involved locally as well, and it's a much easier thing to get involved in conservation locally. And as Chris mentioned earlier, you know, conservation in your own backyard. We have enough things that need to be done here in the U.S., like stream cleanups and park cleanups, trails, greenways. Improving these green spaces and forest areas for public access, and but you know, I think one thing that young people could really do too is just educate yourself. You know, get current on some of these problems and these environmental problems, both in the U.S. and around the world. And as you get older, opportunities will present themselves to get more involved. You know, there are other organizations, there are always local organizations that you can get involved with. There's really quite a bit you can do. You can even get involved in things like around your home, like recycling and conserving water and conserving electricity. All these things really have important environmental impact. Sometimes people just start off trying to think too big when, you know, there are things that we can do at our own houses that can have simple and environmental impact. And talk to your friends and form clubs in your school to take action, or to encourage others to conserve or get involved with environmental issues. But it's not always easy. Sometimes it looks like it seems to be hard to find something, but I really think it's important. You can really keep yourself informed, and the more you learn about these environmental problems, the better able you are to do something about them in the long run.
And there seem to be more and more careers in the environmental field too.
That's true. That's certainly true.
Yeah.
It's a growing field in very many different ways. And it should be.
Yeah. Wow.
Do either of you know of any programs for students that promote research skills?
Research skills? I don't know.
Well, the Duke Lemur Center offers those summer research internships, don't they?
Right.
We do.
Yeah. Those look pretty good.
And the Lemur Center is ramping up several of those programs.
Wow.
Last summer was the first time that we actually promoted a student intern program where we brought out our own research interns. In addition to that, we brought out animal behavior interns and enrichment interns. So whether you're interested in captive animal care, learning how to do research, there was an opportunity for college-age students to come out and participate. We even had education interns where they came out and learned the ins and outs of helping the general public get to know endangered species like lemurs. And those opportunities, they were incredibly beneficial for the Lemur Center, and we also hope for the students. Their summer culminated in an independent research project, all of the interns. So it was an excellent learning experience for them. And it was a pilot year for the program, so it was a great experience for us at the center too, to try to find the best ways to bring students out. And those programs will actually be launching again pretty soon. Within just the next couple of months, just a few weeks, we'll be launching those programs again and looking for applicants, for people that want to get involved. Information about all that, you can watch our website, which is lemur.duke.edu. You can also keep an eye on the Lemur Center's Facebook pages and Twitter feeds, because we'll be pushing out links and content to try to get as many people interested in those programs as we can.
What an excellent opportunity for someone, yeah, and even for visitors just to come by the Lemur Center anytime, right? It's there's a whole variety of different tour options these days. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned it, Eric. But yeah, there's a way for anyone and everyone to visit the Lemur Center. We have tours that are, general walk-around tours where an experienced guide will take a group out and introduce you to a dozen different species of lemur. Talk about each one, about the ways that the Lemur Center is trying to protect each one, all the way up to high-end keeper-for-a-day experiences, where if you care for lemurs and you want to put it to the test, we'll put you in a pair of scrubs, give you some blue latex gloves, and put you out there hosing the poop down the drains. And there's no better bonding experience than being with a lemur and its poop, as you well know, Eric. One of my favorite quotes from the documentary, and I tweeted it out for everyone that was watching, was the part where you said that catching the fecal matter from the Silkies was like catching the bouquet of a bride on her wedding day. That was pure poetry. It was beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, we had to shoot. I don't know if it made it into this cut, where the poop hit the leaf, and then we rolled the leaf into the tube. I don't know if that was in this cut, but that was something we had to shoot. We had to shoot that for time and time again, and it didn't even make this cut. Yeah, just to get the poop to hit the leaf at the right angle. yeah. But boy, you wouldn't believe how hard they work to make a film like this. I mean, 4 different trips to Madagascar, and Tuppen Stone, the producer, and her husband, Ian Gray, and the executive producer, Steve Greenwood, and the cameraman, John Brown. Just a Herculean effort to make a film like that.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, and I agree with that. We've over the years worked with various film companies filming nature documentaries in Madagascar, and as this was originally filmed for BBC always was the most thorough in their filming and doing research and spending the time, making the number of trips that was necessary. They were always just very, very good.
Absolutely. No, they work so hard to get both the shots that are that they need, and also to make the story as accurate as possible.
Yeah.
So very, very unique combination of beautiful filmmaking and true storytelling. Do we have another question here?
It looks like we do, from Jennifer. She's asking, are there any breeding efforts releasing animals into the wild? And
Charlie.
Yeah, I was about to say, nobody knows more about the one and only time it's ever been done in Madagascar. Charlie?
Well, we did do it back in 97 to 2001 in 3 different release waves of releases of the black and white ruffed lemurs into a protected area reserved called Betampuna. And these were lemurs that were brought from the U.S. It was a total of 13. They were captive born in the United States and released into Batampuna, and it's an extremely complex process. I mean, I could hardly even go through it all here, but it's just, I'll just say it's very complex, it's very expensive to do correctly. Now, anybody can go take lemurs and release them in a forest and say that it's been a release, but to be very properly careful about the release so that you don't introduce any diseases, so that you minimize your losses of animals. You're going to have animals that don't make it. Takes a lot of personnel to follow the animals every day. Once they were released into the forest, they were watched, observed every day. Some of them had to be supplementally fed for years, even after the release, before they switched over were able to find enough fruit resources in the forest to feed themselves. It's just a very, very complex, difficult process, and we lost animals too. But any reintroduction into the wild does. But we always get asked, are we, excuse me, are we thinking about doing it again? And I know I'm not. It's. I think one thing that we learned from that release is that it is a much better idea to do translocations within Madagascar. Excuse me. And what I mean by that is I mean moving animals from a very threatened patch of forest, a patch of forest that's disappearing, that is the animals are endangered there, they're not going to last for much longer, to take those animals and to move them to a forest where they have a better chance, where there are more resources, where you know they are protected, because those animals are already wild. They have all the skills to find food, and extremely importantly, the skills to avoid predators, because that was one of our really big problems, was the black and white ruffed lemurs, the Varicea that came to, or that we released. They didn't really have well-honed predator avoidance skills, so we lost some to Fusa, which are the largest predator there in Madagascar. And we never, in all of our years of the conservation agents working in the reserve, never did they see a Fusa kill a wild black and white ruffed lemur. It was only the ones that had been reintroduced or restocking is actually what they call it. So short answer is we aren't thinking about doing it with another species now. Maybe we would try something like that again in the future. It's just very, very complicated to do properly. And every time you take animals from one continent and release them into a completely different area, you're taking huge risks, and I can remember having some sleepless nights worrying about that. But we did very extensive veterinary screening in the U.S. before those animals went to Madagascar, because we really didn't want to risk that. And people ask us, well, at Parc Iveluine you had captive black and white ruffed lemurs there. Why didn't you just release them into the forest? Well, the reason that we didn't was that we could not do the veterinary screening in Madagascar that we could do in the States. And a lot of those animals that were captive in Madagascar were former pets. They'd been around dogs and cats and other domestic animals. They'd been around people. So that's also a huge risk of sticking those animals back in the forest and that you might introduce a disease. So it's tough. I wish I could say that we would like to do more of that, but probably not.
Well, the fact that you did have several of the reintroduced Varicea from captivity that did ultimately breed with a few of the wild members of the same species, that's at least encouraging. But what a tremendous undertaking that was.
Yeah, and that's true. You know, we did have individuals that survived and bred, and the offspring are surviving, and there were many individuals that were introduced that lived in the forest for years before they died. So yeah, I don't mean to imply that we did consider it a success. We learned an enormous amount from it, which was very important. And Betampuna is a very small reserve. You know, it's only about 2,200 hectares. That would be over 5,000 acres. You know, and it's very isolated in that it's cultivated land all around it. It's a real patch of forest. So genetically, it could be important that those new animals, those new individuals, unrelated individuals, were introduced into the reserve and are now part of that wild population.
Right. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap things up for this evening. Thanks everybody for tuning in. If I could leave you with one thing, it would be this image right here, and I hope it comes in clear enough for everybody. This is an incredibly precious place. In the top 3 biodiversity hotspots on the planet, that means it has one of the highest rates of endemism, or species of plants and animals that are found nowhere else on planet Earth, coupled with some of the highest rates of habitat loss and threats to those plants and animals. Something like 3/4 to 90% of everything that lives and breathes on this island only lives and breathes on this island. Yet only something like 10% of the island's native vegetation still remains. It has been lost to habitat destruction from subsistence agriculture, illegal logging, and environmental exploitation on a number of levels. Charlie mentioned before there are no real villains here, but we do know that something has to be done. Erik is on the ground in Madagascar trying to make sure that things get done in that cloudy portion in the northeast part that you can't see because it's mountainous forest and it's probably always got clouds over it because it's always raining. Here at the Duke Lemur Center in Durham, North Carolina, we're working every day to learn about these animals in ways that don't hurt or harm them. People are coming to visit and learning about lemurs in ways that they might not be able to otherwise. Charlie is visiting schools. He's talking with all kinds of people, from donors to school children to people that want to really make a difference in Madagascar. And we're all doing this to try to make sure that this incredible island, and I think Erik is going to throw up some silky photos, if it works, to try to make sure that these precious animals do not disappear. And I'll say, if we have anything to say about it, at least 3 of us, we're going to make sure that lemurs are around for a long time to come. Because we are making progress in Madagascar. That's the hopeful message here. We are making progress. As slow as it is, we're getting there. And we know that things can change in Madagascar. Any part